A sports club, yes, there's a role for it to do a lot of good things in society, but let's not mistake the fact that at the end of the day, it's a business.
There are clubs that haven't changed the cost of their membership for 7 years.
I don't know why sports clubs need to be not-for-profit. Not-for-profit, as you rightly said, needs to generate tons of money to operate as one.
As people, I think we're inherently selfish, to be honest. Today's guest is Prantik Mazumdar. He's a father, a sports tech entrepreneur, and an investor, and someone who sees solutions where most people just see the problems. He spent years building and backing companies across Asia, advising brands and sitting in boardrooms where the future of sport, business and technology all collide. At the same time, he's a grassroots sports tragic, on the sidelines as a dad, watching exactly what's happening inside community clubs every weekend. Now, on the surface, it's easy to look at someone like Prantik and think he's cracked it. But when you look a little closer, as we do in this conversation, you begin to see the reality behind the highlight reel. The pressure on volunteers, the fragility of club finances, and the chaos that's caused by bad systems. It includes the emotional toll on the people trying to hold it all together. And you'll see what cash poor, time poor, and people poor really looks like at the grassroots level, and what it actually takes to survive 2026 and beyond. Despite all of that, he's still all in on community sport. He's optimistic. He's still convinced that with the right mindset, better structures, and smarter use of tech, that clubs can not only survive but thrive. And he shares lessons in this episode that most clubs would take decades to learn the hard way. I'm Scott McKechnie, and this is the ultimate playbook. If you're brave enough to hear the truth about your sports club, you're in the right place. Prantik, we're going to talk a lot today about sports clubs in the community, the troubles they're having with money, with time, with people. Before we do that, I think the most important question here is, who are you within all of this?
Thanks, Scott, for having me. I've never been to the sports bar on a Monday morning, let alone any other mornings. You know, my journey fundamentally has been a mixed bag, where I started as a government servant in Singapore. I worked for SMEs before starting up on my own in the digital marketing space. And then once we sold the business, I became part of a larger conglomerate called Dentsu. And once I finished that journey, I'm sort of part of a few ecosystems in the tech entrepreneurship or sports ecosystem. But what sort of remained true throughout these, I suppose, 22 years is my love and passion for sport as an amateur cricketer, followed by being part of a couple of clubs in Singapore. So I started playing for Singapore Indian Association. I became part of the leadership there. Then at some point I joined SCC, been a proud member of SCC, and I also play for a club called Falcons, where I lead one of the division teams. And outside of that, over the last 5-6 years, I've had a decent vantage point specifically around the South Asian sporting ecosystem beyond cricket. I co-founded a company called Rev Sports, which is a digital first storytelling platform for all sports, primarily Olympic, Paralympic sports. I've had the good fortune of covering cricket for the company, being part of the Olympics and Paralympics in Paris in 24 last year. So you can call me someone who is an amateur player, someone who is part of the leadership or management teams of either sporting clubs or a couple of sport tech companies. I've had the good fortune of advising a few young sports tech companies like Level Up. So I think where I come from is at the core, there's a fan in me. There is a amateur player, but there is someone who is looking to build an ecosystem to see how can I bring my professional skill sets of entrepreneurship, tech, and marketing to the realm of sports as a business, so that I could help not just athletes, but also clubs and franchisees to do better both on field and off field. Because I think sports as an industry has so much to offer. It's one of those final bastions in terms of content, which is real raw. And as you and I would know, sports can change lives It's an equalizer. Something I'll never forget is, when I played for SEC or IA, once you stepped into the field, it didn't matter who was a CEO, who was a banker, who was an intern. Let your ball or bat do the talking. And I think that's what I love about sport. And I think sports has a lot to offer to societies and communities. It can equalize. It can teach you so many life lessons. I would be very, very happy if in the next 15, 20 years I can dedicate my life to bring my fan and amateur player, mix that with my professional expertise to see how can I help sports, the sporting ecosystem grow and do better, both commercially as well as a vehicle to drive change in society.
And you have a son.
Yes.
What role does sport play in his life?
Oh, massive. At this juncture, you ask him, I think he's all set that by 15 he's going to play for India. He has a plan. It's very cute to watch that. As a parent, it's fascinating because we started playing backyard cricket like I suppose most parents and kids would do. During COVID, it was a life changer because that's all we did whenever we had free time. What I've seen in Ayan is, he's 9 today. He started playing cricket maybe 5.5 with a plastic ball and bat. Over the years, he's became a member of Cricket Kingdom. And he started loving the game, not just in terms of playing it over the weekends, but, his day begins with cricket form. And it's not just watching, for example, India-South Africa last night. That was a highlight. But it's also watching the local Syed Mustaq Ali tournament that happened over the weekend. He would check the Singapore-Iran scorecard. I think what's fascinating for me is to see folks like him and his generation look at cricket as an equalizer. I'll never forget waking up on a particular day and he says, Baba, today there's going to be some big cricket match. And I quickly checked. I said, oh yeah. The Indian women's team is, going to be playing, let's say, Australia. He said, wait, why did you call it the Indian women's team? It's the Indian team. You don't call the Indian men's team Indian men's team, right? Small things. But again, this tells you that, if sport is treated fairly, if sport is developed, with India winning the World Cup, the women's team winning the World Cup, it's a massive boost because today, even in Cricket Kingdom, there are games where boys and girls play together. Now, of course, as age groups expand, they will have separate teams. But the fact that it's teaching these boys and girls that, man, it's an equalizer. You've got a ball, I've got a bat. Let's play, let's enjoy. I saw that over the weekend when we went to Johor Bahru. The kids under 12 played against the side from the Johor. It was amazing. There were young kids, 8 and 9. There were 2 girls from the Johor side, and they faced some pretty quick balls. Again, the Singapore folks won. We were happy, but what was amazing is again the point of getting communities together, it being an equalizer, everyone cheering for each other, whether you win or lose. So as a parent, I'm very blessed. I feel very lucky that he's chosen a sport. It happens to be a sport that I love the most. It gets us to bond. So firsthand, it's a fascinating mechanism and tool for us to connect, bond, share lessons, for me to learn from him because, he's born in a generation which is T20, T10 first. So when he watched me play yesterday, he was in the sidelines coaching me as to what to do and what to get my team to do. It was amazing as all the older folks in my team were sort of ideating, let's get to 115, 20 overs. That's not bad. Him and another kid were like, no. This game, you've got to think big, score 200 plus, right? Attitudinal shifts. And I think that's the beautiful part of sport, right? It hopefully gets generations together. It challenges you. So, yeah, it's a big part of our lives right now.
There's a couple of words there that really resonate with me. Community being one. And when I think about sports clubs in the community, inherently speaking, volunteer-driven clubs. Parents with children participating, they have families, full-time jobs, and supporting or running this club is their third priority at best. These clubs are so important for the communities that they serve. But it seems like in today's world, these clubs are struggling more than ever. Whether it's financially, whether it's people volunteering their time to help, resources, infrastructure. Why do you think that sports clubs in the community are struggling now, perceptionally, more than they maybe have done across the last 2 decades?
If I put on my business lens, a sports club, yes, there's a role for it to, do a lot of good things in society, but let's not mistake the fact that at the end of the day, it's a business. And in businesses, we have resources, we have skill sets, and pure talent alone can't take us. You could have the best 11 in that community club, but if they don't have the resources to train, have the equipment, or have the luxury of time to practice, that club isn't going far. Any club owner or a community club owner that is, not well resourced, they've got to be cognizant that it's not charity. If you want to do well, resources are absolutely critical. And this holds true, whether in cricket, soccer, any sport, even at the international level. In cricket, there is a reason why the big three are called the big three. They have massive advantages. So, if Hong Kong, where you played, or Oman, or UAE, or, Malawi, or any other country has to sort of punch above its weight, talent can get there to a particular level. But as you rightly said, as you would know, many of those associate countries, the players, they have day jobs. Look at Singapore as well, right? We are a resource-rich country.
Yeah.
But many of our players don't have the luxury, the infrastructure, the time to practice as much as they would like to. And you take it down to the community level, the problems become manifold. And I think your question as to why now is the challenge harder, fundamentally, again, going to the economics, with inflation, the way things post-COVID have shaped up, it is in Singapore, which again, the reason I use Singapore is A, because I'm here. B, I see it in close quarters, even the core Singaporean population. I met a group, local folks who said, sir, most of us have at least 2, if not 3 jobs. The second one seemed a commonality. Everyone's driving Grab or delivering.
Yep.
Third one being, I wouldn't say odd jobs, but the husband and wife have an interesting Korean cafe in the balcony, right? People are trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And I'm giving the Singapore example because in Singapore, generally, most of us are fairly blessed. There are government doles, education is nearly free at local schools. So imagine if that's the condition in Singapore, you can imagine the condition in, neighboring countries or other countries, that inflation has skyrocketed, which means real estate prices have gone up, which means your match fees are likely to go up, your equipment costs are likely to go up. If you're sort of renting nets, that's likely to go up, which also means the folks who want to play sport in the community, they've got to work harder in their day jobs, night jobs, which leaves you with very little time. And as we know in sport, to excel, you need to practice, you need time. So it's a function of monetary inflation, which also eats up into your time. Put all of that together. Also, I will say exposure and skill set in terms of running clubs. Like I said, it's a business.
Yeah.
Just because I can gather 11 kids or 20 kids, that doesn't make me qualified, doesn't enable me to run a club, let alone run it profitably. You also need technology. You also need business advisory, just like in any other business.
Yeah.
So given these combination of factors, I admire people who try to do this, but I think to do this in a profitable, sustainable manner, it is hard, and it's getting harder.
The sad reality is in a lot of clubs, that some of the people that end up in those critical volunteer roles, I'd say on occasions they're maybe doing it for selfish purposes. And what I mean by that is, I have a daughter, you have a son, they compete in this sports program, and if I take on that role as that coach of that team, I can kind of take a grip on the reins of my child's development.
Yeah.
Now that's your parental obligation, fair enough. But this is a community sports club that is serving the masses. And I think when you have people in said roles that are maybe not able to see the big picture because they're so focused on what's narrow and relevant to them, it's organic. As people, I think we're inherently selfish, to be honest.
Of course.
But I think it can be very taxing for the sports club. The reality is there isn't a queue of people at the door willing to help. And I think a really interesting part of today might be strategizing some ways that the club can better incentivize people to get involved. But beyond that, we spoke a lot about the current financial situation within community sports clubs. And you said a word, charity. Now, of course, some clubs do run as a charity. Even a charity needs to generate revenue. And a lot of clubs are non-for-profit. But we sit down and talk to thousands of sports clubs, and they share with us we're a non-for-profit club. Fantastic. I actually don't think many people know what that means. I think people find themselves in roles at non-for-profit clubs and think we just have to break even. So whatever money we're bringing in has to be just the right amount to cover off what we're spending. There's no margin. There's no buffer. And what that means is that there's never any surplus capital to reinvest into the program, whether it's marketing to find more members and make more money, whether it's facilities to make the club a more attractive proposition to a new member because the club is in fantastic condition. So my question to you is, why do you think so many clubs wear this non-for-profit hat like it's a badge of honor, even if it's killing them?
That's a good observation. And, at the outset, I have a problem with that in the sense, no issues with anyone being not-for-profit. But I don't know why sports clubs need to be not-for-profit. As you rightly said, I probably have a bigger issue with people wearing it as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
They probably want to give out this perception that, oh, we're not here to make money, we're just here to promote sports, help our kids. But I think that takes away their attention or their management focus from the fact that running a community, running any club, running any organization needs a lot of money, a lot of resources. So to give yourself that aura or perception that I'm doing something good for society under the garb of a not-for-profit, I think there's a fallacy there. Unless one is structured. So for example, if you are in Singapore as a registered charity, which by the way, people don't realize this, to become a registered charity takes a lot of documentation, administrative support and money. So even to operate as a professional charity needs a lot of money because you got to apply for the license. The government rightfully demands accountability, which means you need audit, stuff that a amateur club doesn't think about. So if you want to be that, sure, there is a reason to operate as a not-for-profit, but make no mistake, that not-for-profit, as you rightly said, needs to generate tons of money to operate as one. Or like, let's say in a market like India, where corporate social responsibility, CSR, is mandated by law for large companies, one of the first in the world to do so. Large companies are mandated to give, I think, around 2% of their annual profit to some sort of charity or for CSR work.
Fantastic.
And that's a very large pool to take in.
Yeah.
But to access that, again, takes a commercial brain. Because if there's $100, everyone's going to be vying for it. So as you said, marketing, someone's going to build bridges with the Tatas and the big companies saying, hey, give to my charity and not Scott's. That takes resources. So I think the first myth to break is you got to ask yourself, why are you a not-for-profit? You better have good reasons in your jurisdiction to do so. And even if you have those, you still need a lot of resources. Having said that, my preference would be to not operate as a not-for-profit, just from a mindset lens that money is important, money is good. Because you see, I don't know, I can't comment on other parts of the world, but in Asian societies in general, money has always been seen from a lens of evil.
Yeah.
People want to be not-for-profit to be seen as clean and good.
Agree.
And I think that's wrong. I think it's important to say, look, money gives us options. What do we do with money? That's a different question.
That's what defines good and evil.
That's
How
right.
do we utilize this resource? How can we help people
That's right.
through the success
That's
that
right.
this vehicle has generated?
That's right.
That's the intent.
And all the more money is required for these smaller community clubs just to get those kids and the coaches and the people around them to a level playing field. So I think very, very clear that I would urge anyone listening who runs a not-for-profit club that irrespective of whether you're for-profit or not-for-profit, to realize that any business, whether you're a club, whether you're a bar, whether you're a salon or a chicken rice stall or a tech startup, you operate on one principle and one formula alone: profit equal to revenue minus cost. In the case of a not-for-profit, profit is zero, R and C are balancing each other. But to your point, if you take a long-term view, you need to create resources, balances, surpluses, because God forbid, if something like COVID hits again, you've been through that, I've been through that, you need a balance, you need a margin. I would urge every community, every club to say, treat money with responsibility, but be hungry for money. Money is good, money gives you options, and there are different forms and ways of generating money, and we'll talk about it. But fundamentally, find a way to make this sustainable. Otherwise, you would be doing a disservice to your own community.
Profit in non-for-profit clubs does not mean that you should not be creating significant margins on your products, whether it's clothing and merchandise, whether it's memberships and match fees, club events or overseas tours. Create a margin. I would always target a 20% margin, minimum. What non-for-profit means is that before you balance your books at the end of the year, reinvest it. You can't take money out as profit at the end of the year, but you have margins and you create balance. Now, if you want to put some aside for a rainy day, fantastic. If you want to go and build that brand new facility at the sports club, if you want to invest in people, in equipment, in marketing for the following season, you've got a pool of funds to do it, and now we grow. Clubs with no margins stagnate, they maintain. In a world where the cost of everything is going up, clubs must create margins. And when clubs jump on a call with me and my team and they say, we're a not-for-profit, and I say, fantastic, what margins are you making on A, B, C, D, E? And they respond and they say, I just told you we're a non-for-profit, there is no margin. I die a little bit inside. Because I can see, and I have seen, what happens to that club 10 years from now. They run out of money, they run out of passion, they run out of fire, they run out of resource, and everything falls away. The data suggests that more people are participating in community sport than ever before. But the number of active clubs is shrinking. And I think it sends a really interesting message that the demand and the appetite for sport, certainly post-COVID, where we were all locked up for a period of time, is very high.
Yeah.
The ability for clubs to run and grow and sustain those people operationally is diminishing. It means the big clubs are getting bigger. But there's a lot of very important small clubs in the community that are suffering. Maybe we can help them. As you know, Prantik, as a successful founder, entrepreneur, business leader, knowing your numbers is key. When I sit in investor rooms, if I don't know my numbers, I'm laughed out the door. Do you think sports clubs know their numbers?
From my vantage point, very unlikely. Because what I've seen in many sporting club structures is there is a large leadership committee, the faces of the clubs, and then there's a tiny operating layer. And I think that's the other, I suppose, good or bad about sports is exciting, hence it brings glamour, hence it attracts a lot of quote-unquote big successful people to be the faces of these clubs or administration, because people want that glamour. But very often what I've seen, that glamorous layer, again, it's to do with structure. They're probably there to be the faces of the club, but very often they are clueless about the operating layer. And the operating layer either may not have the skill sets, vantage point, access, support to A, know their numbers, B, even if they know their numbers, the capability or the power to influence change. And that's a big thing that I've seen in Singapore and in India, in Indonesia, where I grew up, that a lot of people want to be associated with sporting clubs for the glamour and the fame. And their terms may be, 2 years. Some may last for 3-4 years. But again, it's a side gig. They come for their quarterly meetings. They ask a few questions, throw a few ideas. It is not run like a company would be, where yes, you could have a board of directors, you could have a famous chairman, chairwoman, but you need a CEO with the responsibility and the KPIs and the power to operate it as a going concern. That's something that I don't see. Accountability, responsibility, knowledge with, so to speak, one or two throats to choke. And that's an irony, because in sports, good or bad is you win and lose in public. The scorecard is there for everyone to see. But when you see that same practice not being followed inside the room, it's ironical, but that's a reality. So if you throw a stone and you go to any one of the clubs and you just see if anyone knows their numbers beyond the headlines, very likely you're likely to find that people don't know this. And I think that's where mismanagement begins. That's where things begin to fall apart, because to your point, they don't see a 10-year picture. They're thinking of this as a feel-good charity. Let the kids play, let them have fun, maybe they'll win, there'll be a feel-good story. And the reason, again, going back to my original point of, I don't like this moniker of not-for-profit, because it paints a very sorry picture that we are this little poor club. We only run on doles and your patronage and your charities at the end of the year. That's a revenue source. But as you rightly said, there are probably 5 others, which if you did have a proper management layer, if you had a CEO, he or she, if they are rightly empowered, they could, just like in any other business, find diverse multiple revenue sources to make sure there's sustainable revenue, you're de-risking the business, and you're evolving. Because the other thing we don't realize is, if you think of a sports club as a going concern, as a business, you've got to find a way to modernize, to evolve, be it through technology, be it through, finding new business models. Otherwise, you will be stuck in the Victorian age, so to speak, saying, I have this massive clubhouse, some F&B, kids are playing around, but you will not be able to sustain. Because as you said, things are getting expensive, the world's moved on. Because again, we're at the end of the day, no matter what business, we're vying for attention. Sports takes attention. Sports needs energy. This could be a cricketing club, but you've got to be real about the demand. Is cricket still very popular? If not, how do we make it popular? Which means marketing dollars. If yes, and if not, what else is popular? Pickle and paddles picking up. Can we use the infrastructure to generate revenue to support my core sport, cricket? Right? So there are various ways of looking at it, but it starts with the mindset that, with that formula and that accountability. I could be cricket, I could be soccer, I could be whatever, but it's like within cricket, we all know that there are 3 formats. ODI is dying a slow death. Test, there is purest interest, but not enough money. T20, like it or not, seems the future. But the ICC or the different bodies are evaluating. So do I keep all 3 alive? I have a loss leader. Can I have the T20 support the other formats? Do I kill ODI? There's talks between Clive Lloyd and A.V. de Villiers. Do we mix Test and T20? Yeah. That's thinking. You and I who love Test cricket, may not like it as a purist, but unless we evolve to be relevant to the new generation in terms of attention, it's going to hit us hard. The same goes for clubs.
I prefer to eat in a restaurant that serves the food hot. And let me explain what I mean here. These 2 things are not mutually exclusive. My club needs to generate revenue, we need to make money. But I'm doing this because I love and care and am passionate about my community. They don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Well said.
It can be both things. And to the metaphor, if a club generates more revenue or increases its margins or brings in new initiatives that will drive new revenue into the club, it means better facilities or better maintained facilities. It means we have the resource to spend on more qualified coaches and maybe do more significant due diligence to ensure that we're putting the right people in front of the children of our community to create incredible learning opportunities through the vehicle of sport. Now, when all of that is said and done, and your child or my child turns up at a sports club to play sport, are they more or less likely to have a positive experience of the game? If it's done at a great facility, coordinated by great professionals, and I have the kit and the clothing and everything that needs to be paid for, there when I turn up. Better opportunity, better experience, surely. And this is what I mean about I prefer to eat at a restaurant where the food is served hot. Generate revenue, non-for-profit, charity, for-profit, doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be mutually exclusive to the passion. But you have to generate more revenue, which means you have to increase margins. You have to move with inflation. There are clubs that haven't changed the cost of their membership for 7 years.
Yeah.
All the time, inflation has gone from here to here. Then coming back to our discussion just now, if you don't know your numbers, how on earth do you know what to spend and where to spend it? Then you end up just hoarding cash for a rainy day. Well, yes, important to an extent, but if we're not spending money, we're definitely not generating new money. And now we're in this loop of just sustaining. So I really hope that there's a club leader watching this that's running their club non-for-profit, quote unquote. We're not making any margins off our members. We are volunteers at this club and our job is to serve the members. Yes, correct. Not mutually exclusive to driving revenue through the club. Create revenue. Spend. Grow. Whether you're a tech startup, whether you're a community sports club, it doesn't change. Now, sports clubs leak capital like nothing else I've ever seen. Where do you think the biggest leaks are when it comes to revenue in sports clubs at the grassroots level? Where's the money going?
There are probably two parts to it, the way I see it, in terms of leakage. So I sort of look at the fact that I think one fundamental challenge amongst many of these sporting clubs that I've been part of is leakage at collection. The collection mechanism is so poor. Again, it starts with that mindset, because if you operate with that charitable mindset, you're probably very lenient. You don't increase your fees. And as you know, in any business, I could send POs and invoices, but if the money doesn't hit my bank, it doesn't matter what my books say. So I think cash flow in terms of, because when you're running the clubs and your vendors, very likely you're paying your outlay is there. You have to pay to these businesses. But when it comes to membership, one of the biggest laxes that I've seen is, and the ownership lies on both sides, but fundamentally collection is a huge challenge. Because with cash, there are two aspects. One is like you said, are the fees relevant for the times we live in? B, are we collecting it? C, are we collecting it on time? Because cash flow cycle makes a huge difference. That's one. Second is, I think my biggest pet peeve is with not exploring different revenue sources. So today, most of the clubs that I play for, how do they make money? They have some member fees. They struggle to generate some sponsorship, because again, they don't have the bandwidth or the wherewithal to generate that sponsorship. And even if they do, it's still member fees and a little bit of sponsorship. But they haven't thought through other avenues of generating money, which, there could be many options. You could have loyalty partnerships with various merchandise brands, right? Because I think fundamentally these clubs look at the business very transactionally. You pay for a few months, you get to play. Whatever match fee that gets passed on to the local administrator, there's no margin there. C, they have not thought through loyalty programs, merchandising, or access to technology, or access to various things. I'll give you a positive example of a club in Singapore, which has sports. It's a socio-cultural sports club called the Khalsa Association near Balestier. Because I could keep criticizing, but I also want to give the audience a good example of how a club over the last 30 years has built something that's solid, has multiple revenue sources, and definitely has a purview for the next 20, 30 years. So the Khalsa Club, very much sort of started in Singapore representing the Sikh community, right? And they have social gatherings. They have a pretty good soccer team, hockey team, cricket team, all of that. What they have done over time is, to your point, it's not either or. They have raised membership fees over the years. They've collected them well. They have raised good patronage and good sponsorship money from some of the richer members of the community. So there's a base fee, but there's a tiered revenue mechanism, just the way you would have in airlines. Not every member is the same. For people who pay more, they get varied levels of services or access. So you have different tiers of revenue, you have different tiers of sponsorship, and they have different revenue drivers, be it sports, be it F&B, be it... You see, one of the biggest challenges of a club, if they have space, at the end of the day, as an investor, I still would look at it as revenue per square feet, like it or not. We're sitting in this beautiful space here, but someone's paying massive rent in prime property. So as much as I love my cricket, someone's got to dispassionately look at this and saying, man, I'm occupying prime land in Singapore. So this bar needs to be able to make money from the booze, from the food, from the tips, from the merchandise.
Yeah.
This space, if you think of most clubs, one of the biggest challenges is sports is usually played over the weekends and in the evenings. So daytime, what can we do to refurbish the space, to use it for something else?
And it's a bigger picture.
It's a bigger picture. You're a business.
100%. And
So
then you
the-
have the seasonality of sport
That's
as
right.
well. So you have evenings, weekends during the season. But what about the off season?
Off-season.
How are we monetizing during the off season?
That's right.
And this is where a lot of clubs miss an opportunity through my lens. They have this fantastic cash flow through the summer or through the winter, depending on the sport. And then the season finishes. Everybody needs a break because it's volunteer driven and they're all
That's
so
right.
tired, and that's completely fair enough. But programs just go dormant for 4 months of the year. And a huge amount of revenue is lost through opportunities that could have been explored. And I
That's
want
right.
to come on to those in a moment.
Yeah, and just to finish the culture club picture, what I see them do is use that real estate in the club that they have to rent it out to tuition centers or yoga studios or anyone else who could utilize my space, pay me rent.
Yeah.
And again, that comes only if you think of it as a business as opposed to a sporting club. Because someone told this to me very well that, look, even in the world of sports tech, sports is glamorous, sports is great, sports gets eyeballs, but sports, compared to many other industries, because of seasonality and other factors, the total addressable market is not as large as various other businesses. So if you're cognizant of that, so the club over the last 25 years, different revenue sources, different membership tiers, different sponsorship tiers, very strong management club. And also what I noticed what they've done is they've built a very strong endowment. And to your point, why it's not either or is because when you have a very strong endowment fund, you can, and they have, unlike many other clubs, they've not taken whatever the endowment corpus is and put it into a fixed deposit. They've actually said, you know what, I'm going to take this and I'm going to invest it like a balanced portfolio like you and I would do. And again, it's someone's fiduciary duty. At the same time, they said, look, we're going to plow this money into the Singapore stock market. So we're doing something for the country.
Yeah.
We're not keeping it in fixed deposit for 2-3%. The stock market might give me 7-8%. From that return, I could hire better people. And by the way, from that corpus, from the interest, I could use that to give out scholarships. So you have the charitable lens to give it to people for deserving underserved people. So I think it all boils down to, if I think of it as a sustainable, profitable, going concern for the next 10 years, your mind opens up to various mechanisms to generate revenue, profit through multiple sources, yet do good.
Yeah.
So I think one of the key messages, hopefully, just the way you said, entrepreneurship is a force for good. So if you think of this as an entrepreneurial business, you can make money, you can be self-sustained, you can be successful and do good. It is never either or.
When we spoke about leakage at the beginning there, we actually ran a study. We ran a study in 2019 and we assessed a cross-section of the UK market to try and understand how much money are sports clubs losing in the community every year. 14%. It's the estimated average. 14% leakage. Some clubs were doing very well, 2, 3, 4%. There were clubs upwards of 20% leakage. The average of the cross-section that we spoke to, 14%. If you're a club doing £50,000 a year, middle of the road club, there are some much smaller, some much bigger. It's £7,000 a year leakage. I think anybody watching this who's running a sports program could think very quickly about some of the things they could do with £7,000. The issue of leakage is prominent, and this is the double-edged sword. It's clubs not generating enough revenue and certainly not creating big enough margins. And then through the guise of not knowing their numbers, the leakage is more than likely bigger than what they think it is. What is leakage? It's that member that forgets to pay their match fee on Saturday and promises to pay next week, but they don't. The club is volunteer driven, we have limited resources, it doesn't get chased. We get to October, we need to balance the books, it's written off. I'm not going to keep chasing that member. The sad reality is there's probably 15 of that member at every single club.
Yeah.
Some with good intent, some with bad. But when compounded over the course of a season, certainly in a club that has in excess of a couple of hundred members, these figures stack up. I grew up at a club where all the clothing was sat behind the bar. The amount of times people turned up on a Saturday and just forgot their shirt.
Yeah.
They grab one from behind the bar. I'll pay after the game. No, you won't. Leakage. Or we're in the middle of a match and it's a social club, so I just go behind the bar and I grab a can of Coke. I'll pay for it later. Honesty policy. Money leaks out of sports clubs like nothing I've ever seen. Understanding the numbers is one thing. Automating collection is critical. And this is what a lot of clubs are not understanding, is that if your cash leakage is 14% every year, estimated average in the UK from a cross-section that we studied, if you can use a digital tool to reduce that to under 4% cash slippage, you've just opened up 10% of new revenue. Now, if you have to pay 3 or 4% for that digital service, you're still 6% better than you were before.
Yep.
Plus all of the other value it brings to having this consolidated digital community that the sports club lives and breathes within. No more WhatsApp groups. I can go home, have dinner with my wife, not get bothered about the sports club. We're collecting money more freely. I can communicate better with my people. I've got on-demand availability and selection information whenever I want it, wherever I am in the world. Clubs have to lean into digital. Would you agree or disagree?
Absolutely. I mean, there are no two ways about it, because to all the points you mentioned, it brings in efficiency. But beyond that, it is just about staying and being relevant. Today, most clubs, like you said, if you look at the customer journey in clubs, chances are, they're using a bunch of fragmented digital tools anyway. Someone's using Excel to, consolidate. WhatsApp groups for every match, which is hard to search beyond the point. Collection is manual, where on the WhatsApp group, that's a good reminder, I've got to ask my folks to pay up by tonight. I'm going to chase on the group, some pay, some don't, then I got to send individual messages so that I don't embarrass them. So you see the mental load there?
Yeah.
The match was 8 hours yesterday, but the next 3 days, I've got to write a match report. With today's Gen AI, tech could, if someone was watching it, tech could help me write the summary quite well. There are tools that could look at the scorecard and give me a quick summary. I could just edit, upload it if that's part of my captain's role. In terms of team selection, we're using another app. In terms of scorecards, another app. In terms of looking at consolidated performance and analysis, it's another app. Even if you want to have, as a community, if you want to take photographs and videos of the match, you're taking it on your phone, again, WhatsApp, sharing it somewhere else. So there's a massive room, just like it is for any other business, to have a consolidated digital layer, to make it engaging, to make it efficient, to keep the club real, and just like I would do in any business, to give me a dashboard on a Monday morning after the cricket excitement's done or the weekend, saying, here's where I stand. Here's my revenue, here's my loss, giving me forecasts so that I can plan ahead, especially for the seasonality. So I think, and the funny thing is, after the weekend, when most of the amateurs who might have day jobs, they go back to their companies, they're probably using digital interfaces in their businesses. And it is not rocket science. It is basic digital ERPs, digital communication, revenue opportunities, something that I see in the US amongst college sports, but I hardly see here. In today's day and age, another revenue opportunity that has sprung upon is, how do you, within limits, encourage your college athletes, your amateur school athletes beyond a particular age, leverage social media to generate content which can generate revenue. Because in the US system, what I'm noticing is college sports fundamentally is very strong, but the Nikes of the world are not just looking at tier 1 athletes, they're looking at the college to lock in someone early, but also help them become individual brands, influencers in their respective communities. So again, when we think of influencer, we think of Roger Federer, but you need to find that Roger Federer in Tiong Bahru. If he or she has influence amongst 10,000 people in that vicinity, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
So again, if you leverage digital both from leakage, efficiency, but also revenue generation. To me, it's a no-brainer, but it's something, again, unfortunately, I think very, very few people are cognizant because of that voluntary weekend mindset.
Yeah. It is definitely the one thing that sports clubs do understand is the real currency. The real currency is not financial. The real currency is time. Now, what can you do with that time? Well, this is where the fun bit starts. If we can put fee collecting on autopilot, get the numbers right, lean into technology to take on all of that burden that you just spoke so brilliantly about, what can I now do with this time? Well, either I can spend more time with my family and have a much better balance of life in partnership with my personal and my professional and my sports club. I'm then more fulfilled. I'm then probably going to add more value to the club. Or I can utilize that time to, guess what? Grow the club. Do all the things you currently can't do. Take a step back, think big picture, strategize for the next 4-year cycle. Because with all of these fragmented systems that you spoke about, and let's not forget that a sports club committee inherently will change every 1 to 4 years. If I'm coming into a brand new committee and there's 15 operational systems, it's going to take me 2 seasons just to get to understand how to run this beast.
Yeah.
Never mind how to grow it and develop it and move it forwards. So let's talk about what that growth looks like. Memberships. Memberships inherently at clubs are quite seasonal, certainly in the UK where I'm from. It's April, the start of the cricket season, I have to pay £150 to my sports club. It gives me access to the 2026 season. Why are sports clubs not doing it like Netflix? Instead of me having to pay £150 every April for 6 months of sport, why is the club not charging me £25 a month for 12 months a year to encourage me to be there in season, off season? It includes a couple of items of clothing. Now I feel more associated with the club. It's all of my training sessions, and it's my first 20 games. Well, now I'm incentivized to turn up and play. I want to get value out of my membership. And if you want to pay for the whole year in advance, we'll give you a 5% discount. Cash flow into the club. Fantastic. Why are more sports clubs not doing this?
I think fundamentally because sports clubs just think matches, transaction. You come, you play, you pay. It's very much the mindset is you just thinking of it as a place where someone comes and pays and plays for a particular duration, which is again myopic because you're ignoring the capex cost, the running cost, whether it's off season, on season, it's 365 days.
Yeah.
You've got to pay salaries, you've got to pay voluntary fees, whatever it is. And you're right. If you think of it as a business in a modern day age, you will think of it as recurring revenue, which is what Netflix gives you. But to be fair, for it to be able to command that fee structure and the fee as a Netflix, you've got to give value like a Netflix. You and I love Netflix because of the not just the plethora of content which is out there, which can be accessed anywhere, anytime, on any device, but it's also the recommendation and the personalization engine, right? It tells you if you like this, you may like this. It gives you options. And I think there are parallels. If the club thinks of it as a business, if it thinks of it as what Starbucks, a decade ago I did some consulting and training work for Starbucks. It opened my eyes because the senior leadership at Starbucks were going through an offsite. And their mantra was, we are not a coffee shop. We are what we call a third place. Outside your home, outside your office, this is the third place for Scott and Prantik to meet, or for Scott to come and chill, or for Scott to come and do some work if he needs a third place. Look at the mindset shift.
Yeah.
Every coffee shop thinks of it. Scott comes, buys the copy, pays the money, bye-bye. That's one mindset shift. Because if it's a third place, you're thinking 365 days. There's value for you, not just the coffee, but the experience. The other thing that's fascinating about Starbucks is their biggest business. I equate Starbucks to a bank. It's the loyalty card.
Correct.
You're putting in money there. That's cash.
Yeah.
That's a bank.
And it's a huge amount of cash.
Huge amount
I've
of
seen the report.
So that's the parallel in my head, that today most sporting clubs think of themselves as just that one-off coffee transaction.
Yeah.
But a sporting club, if you think if Starbucks can be the third place, there's probably more reason for a sporting club to be the third place.
Yeah.
For yourself, your colleagues, your teammates, your families, just yourself.
Yeah.
If you start thinking of it as a real estate business, you could not just offer sports, off season, on season. You could offer training facilities, a gym. You could offer co-working spaces. You could offer rental space for events. So suddenly, new buckets of revenue sources begin.
Recurring revenue.
Recurring diverse revenue. And I dare say, you could operate like that loyalty card. The biggest thing that the low-hanging fruit is loyalty. If you start treating your club members or your fans as loyalty members, and you activate and you start thinking of giving Prantik the member value to come to the SCC every day, I would be glad to do that, and I would be happy to pay a premium. Which, by the way, if I give you an analogy, in Singapore, some of the new age non-sporting clubs, for example, Mandala, where you and I met, 1880, they operated as a subscription. You pay a one-time fee, then you and I pay monthly subs, which all the more, when you pay, human psychology says you want to go and use it. So you and I use the club for various things. So they're not looking at it as, oh, Scott, pay me when you meet Prantik there, or just pay for food. You paid a one-time fee, which is pretty hefty. You're paying monthly fees, and you're paying for other utilizations. So someone's thought that through. And to me, that's gold dust. Because the other thing we didn't talk about is, if you use the digital layer, you're collecting data. And if you start collecting that data, that is gold mine, not for you in terms of personalization of service, but to the eventual sponsors that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
So there you go. I think it is low-hanging fruit, and it's a sorry picture. It's unfortunate that the folks that you speak at, and by the way, the beauty of digital is it democratizes. So it doesn't have to be a large club like SCC.
Yep.
It could be some small club in Pune or in Sussex, wherever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. There's so much that I want to cover here, but I want to ensure that before we separate today, the clubs and the club leaders listening or watching have some really practical things that they can go away and develop. So let's start on the monetization piece. Time is the real currency, but I think we've covered enough today to help clubs understand how to create more time. It's consolidation. It's operational consolidation. It's leaning into tech. It's reduction and it's simplification of processes and tooling. That unto itself will open up a huge amount of time. When it comes to monetization, club membership, please ensure clubs that you've got a margin, and a reasonable margin. We have match fees, and we have clothing and merchandise. A lot of clubs are still not leaning into merchandise, but people join sports clubs and become a part of a club, and they feel very connected to their club. It's a very emotive journey being a part or a member of a sports club. I'm a sucker for it. If I'm part of a club, I've got every piece of kit. Maybe not straight away, but I'll save up some capital and I'll put in some birthday requests, and by the end of the year, I've got the bag, the shirt, the cap, the water bottle, the beer coolie, the ball, I've got everything. People associated with clubs love to buy stuff to do with the club, generally speaking. And yet, 95% of clubs that I speak to have no range of merchandise. Now, you've been in the sphere of business for a long time, and you've worked across a very diverse range of operations. If I'm a sports club with no merchandise range, customized, and I want one, what are the first couple of things that you think I should do? And you're on the spot a wee bit here, Prantik. But how do I find the right vendor to provide this personalized equipment to my club?
And I'll take a step back, right? Because you used the word emotive journey. That's the power to unlock. You've got to start with the vision that I am not just a venue where people come to play sport. My biggest superpower as any sporting business, it's the emotive customer journey. If I start there, that has various branches, but let's stick to merchandise. And let's stick to personalized merchandise. I have real examples of clubs in Singapore who have figured, through online searches, credible vendors in India, Bangladesh, China, who, by the way, moment I say those three countries, very many people will think of them as low-cost countries, which is true. But I must add that these are low-cost countries, but there are vendors who create fantastic high quality clothing. So it's low cost and high quality dry fit, because like it or not, all your good Uniqlos and your Nikes and all the good stuff that we buy for a premium with the brand gets manufactured in some of these countries, Vietnam, Bangladesh, etc. So you are very likely to find supply chain partners there. It's not too difficult. You go to Alibaba, you speak to a few vendors, friends in Bangladesh, Delhi, happy to connect people. They will give you branded merchandise for you, which is high quality. But again, it's not a one-off SKU. If you start thinking of a business, like I said, if you have tiered membership, you could have different tiers. So not everyone may want the expensive polo, but you could start with a simple tee. You could start with handkerchiefs. You could start with umbrellas. So if you start thinking of the emotive journey, step one, talk to your club members, ask them what do they want.
Yes.
Don't presume. Very likely the kids, the mums, the dads, the granddads, grandmoms will have different, some may want notebooks, some may want something only digital.
Yeah.
But within merchandise, it's a huge category, from plush toys, the balls to clothing. Once you make that catalog for different, map it to different segments, finding the vendors honestly is the easier bit. But it's adding the emotive personalized layer. So if Ayan's going to get something from the club, he wouldn't derive the same value from what I derive at 40. So I think once you have, going to your Netflix analogy, once I have that understanding of who my members are, what do they want, and then how do I personalize it for them? I think that's step one. Go through that mental checklist or that exercise.
Yeah.
Then in today's world, finding vendors is not too hard. Find them, personalize it. And to your word, the other word is make the most of the emotive journey. Don't just give it out randomly. Make it ceremonial. Like, you can't just get a cap, you've got to earn it. So, when a new member comes in on your member onboarding day, could you have a little bit of a ceremony? Could you get the chairman of the club to give the t-shirt to every new member? Because that experience increases the value, the premium. Because you and I can buy a t-shirt, everyone can. But to your point, it's the superpower of emotions. It's the process. There's a reason why you and I pay whatever we pay for an Apple device. The box, the packaging, the storytelling.
Yeah.
Again, I think the club's, your biggest superpower is your emotion. If your club in Pune has had a legend back in history, could you get that merchandise autographed? The price goes up 3-4x. So start with that exercise, find different segments, think of the different merchandise, think how you can personalize it, and think how you can premiumize it. These are some practical ways I would urge everyone, because this could unlock massive value.
For sure.
Because the value is in the intangibles, not in this t-shirt.
Yeah. And when they have the product and they feel more committed and more engaged and more associated with the club, that inherently increases retention. And then we can start to build. If we're having to bring in 2 new members for every 1 that leaves, we can grow slowly. If we're bringing in 5 new members for every 1 that leaves, now we can start to expand much faster. From a community club perspective, would you agree that it's a simple survey? What would you like to see from the club? We're considering a new merchandise range. Which of these things would you buy? And what is a fair price that you would be willing to pay for this item? Once you have that data, you can then see the top 5 items that members want. There's a demand. You've proved your concept. Then, how do we pay for it? Pre-order. Another form with a payment link, or use your digital tool. Okay, you told us you wanted this Singapore Cricket Club umbrella. Here it is. This is how much it costs. The pre-order is open until Friday at 5 p.m. Go and buy it now. The club then has a commitment financially from its members for this product. You have the budget, go buy it. The club is not exposed to any risk. There's no cash down in advance. They've got absolute commitment from the membership. And God, it makes the club look so much more professional. And you can rinse and repeat that, as you say, across so many products. Why more clubs aren't doing it baffles me. It's not just the margin that you make on the product. It's the association people feel with the club. It's the community that you build. It's the envy that you create amongst members. I missed the pre-order. That product's fantastic. Okay, next pre-order, I'm going to mobilize quicker. Now I have the product, I'm retained for many years. I've just bought the t-shirt, I don't want to leave now. And now we have a business that's growing. Would you agree?
Very much. It goes back to the fundamentals of the club wanting to build a brand. Because, many people mistake a brand for a simple logo or a tagline. But what you just described is classic brand building 101. You want to be perceived for something. You want to build that differentiation. You want to create that FOMO. You want to create that premium association. And again, what I tell these clubs is your biggest superpower is the emotive experience or your access. Clubs like SCC are obviously well-resourced, have access. But even if it's, there's, for example, I'll take the example that I love in Singapore, the Mariners Club, right? It's a good club, professionally loved, sort of organized. But what I like is they leverage their superpower of not just having the resources, but they're well networked. So they provide access to some of the best cricketers the world may have ever seen.
Yeah.
So if this club, if SCC or Mariners or any of the clubs gives me access to a legendary cricketer every year. Last year, we were lucky to see Steve Waugh here. If every year I know that this club will give me access to reciprocal membership, access to matches, the Ashes or the India-Australia matches, or it's going to give me access to even the under-19. So, we were in Johor Bahru. If there is an arrangement with my club that says, your kid's going to get a chance to play a match there, or you guys are going to get a chance to watch the World Cup qualifiers. So it doesn't have to be tier 1, but even that's great access. So emotive experiences and access to stories, to people, because that's what sport is all about. That's what binds the community. But if you don't have that broader vision of wanting to build a differentiated brand based on the pillars of the emotive journey, the storytelling and the access, you will forever remain a physical real estate business where people come to play a weekend game and bye-bye.
Yeah.
And that's the tragedy. So it all begins with, a founder that I admire. When I met him, he runs a unicorn in India. And he would, if you were sitting next to him, he would ask you, Scott, what business do you run? You would give him an answer. He would ask that question 5 times. To really understand what business do you run? Like, what do you do? Because everyone gives this buzzword of, this tech, that tech. And his suggestion I take close to heart. He says, unless and until you're able to describe your business in simple English, Hindi, Bengali, whatever, in 2 lines to either your grandmom or to a 10-year-old, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And he's not being harsh. He's just saying clarity. So I think all of us who are running these clubs, we've got to, and it's not about having the fancy vision or mission statements. It's really being saying, what business am I in? The other easy analogy is Google. Now Google, you and I probably don't not have a day where we don't use Gmail or search. But if you ask Google what business they are in, if you look at their annual report, they are in the business of running ads. They make 95% of $100 billion through ads.
Yeah.
It's not Gmail or search. That's the product that they offer. So if you flip it to the clubs, they could someday someone could say, matches are free. That's disruptive. Play free matches. That's my differentiator. That's my value add to the community. I'll make money somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's again shifting that mindset of what business do you want to be in? And that may or may not mean that your core offering is priced. You could have other ancillary mechanisms to fund that.
Yeah.
That's a approach. But fundamentally, be it merchandise, be it transactions, be it collections, I think what's critical is once you know what business you are in, once you know your brand pillars, you can't ignore a digital interface, because there's something that you said, it's also about professionalism. Because, like you said, sports, you have committees running this every 2-3 years. So unless there's documentation, there's professional digital layers, there is no transparency, there's no accountability, and you're not a professional organization. You are just a weekend bunch of volunteers where people just come and play and go. You can't run that way.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
I agree. Prantik, this has been fantastic. 2 weeks from now, I'm going to release a video to this community. And I'm going to go deep and narrow into the practicals of everything we've discussed here. Challenging the membership model, how it could be done better for more recurring revenue, merchandise and new revenue streams, clubs that aren't running monthly lotteries and 100 club initiatives to create additional revenue there, clubs that are not promoting donations from the community, and sponsorship. I think a lot of clubs are still going for that big sponsor. And in the last couple of minutes here, I want to talk about sponsorship, because a lot of clubs in the community are still very focused on sponsorship. What I'm still seeing is that clubs think they can go out into their community and find that one sponsor that's going to give them £5,000 this year. Newsflash, those people don't exist like they used to. Cost of living crisis is pulling money out of people's pockets. If it's pulling money out of people's pockets, they don't have as much money to invest into their economy. Who does that hurt? The small businesses. What can they now not do? Sponsor their local sports team. This is happening in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
But what I've seen a lot of success with, Prantik, is micro sponsorship. Instead of going for that one lot of £5,000, I'm going to go out and find 100 lots of 50 quid from my community, people that care about the role this club is playing for its people. Is it a little bit more work? Yes. Is it a huge amount more successful? Absolutely. So my local electrician can give me £50. My local butcher can give me £50. My local hairdresser can give me £50. They can't give me 5,000 quid right now. What role does sponsorship play in community sport moving forwards? And how should clubs be approaching it today?
See, sports and sponsorship have gone hand in hand, whether you look at ICC tournaments or to club community sports. So needless to say, I think sponsorship is here to stay. It's a critical one. But I think you brought about a good point about micro sponsorship. You could look at crowdfunding. And it's not just about reducing price points, it's also about hedging your bets, because if you're reliant on one big bank, tomorrow people change, policy changes, that sponsorship goes away. It's also about risk management.
Yeah.
And again, digital gives you the tool to enable people to do micro donations. And it doesn't have to be, some people could be rich enough and kind enough to give you upfront. Some people could pay monthly. That 50 quid, break it into 10 into 5. Every month I'm going to pay 5.
Yeah.
Right? And you could make it meaningful. I'll come to corporates, but you could make it meaningful where if the kids are playing, can they be involved to drive a groundswell movement in their condo, saying, you know what, I'm going to make drawings of memories from this club. Parents, are you willing to auction a bid? Wow. It's also about involvement. Yeah. I saw this in Singapore so I support an Indian sports foundation called Olympic Gold Quest, OGQ. When they come and raise money here, they have big fat donors who give 100K a year, the ultra high net worth folks. They then go to individuals who commit 10K for 5 years. That's another model. They also go to these kids. So the same parents who give 10K, they said, look, I want my kids to be involved. So I'll never forget this girl who raised 5,000 Sing dollars from her condo by selling whatever she sold. Again, merchandise. I remember now, OGQ gave her a particular, let's say this ball or a cap from a rock star. She basically went around doing a mini auction. She raised 5,000 Sing. But the value is not the 5,000 Sing. The value is the awareness and the involvement of that kid. She'll feel super proud for months to come, right? So that's on the personal side. On the corporate side, you're absolutely right that even from the big companies, the big mega sponsorship is not coming. But I think if I'm a club owner, the onus lies on me. Even in Singapore, when I see tournaments being held, the management does not answer the question why. Even if I have 50K, why should I give you 50K? It can't be just about me plastering billboards. That goes back to your original point, Scott, that they have not capitalized or understood their asset, the membership data, because they don't collect it.
Yeah.
Beyond the name, email ID, they don't know their preferences. Because if you came to me as a bank and you said, you know what, Prantik, I have 10,000 members, here's the audience segmented data, here's what each one likes. Oh, you have a premium NRI product. You have a premium investment product. You know what? Let's do targeted, segmented branding. For this, I can tell you there is an audience which at a community level, the butchers, the barbers, etc., you should involve them, community bottom up. There is still, may not be big money, but there is still money for the sports. Because by the way, we are sitting in a space around us, F1 happens, and we know they pay billions collectively.
Yeah.
So there is money. The question is more, what is the club willing to give in return, the value exchange? And I think if they're still stuck in the world, oh, I'm going to give you awareness. Now, guess what? A HSBC or Goldman Sachs, a law firm, they don't need that. You can't, it's not televised, your sport. So you're not going to give them millions of eyeballs. So you can't, the offering can't be billboards. The offering can't be awareness. It needs to be a little, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel.
Yeah.
Give them, so something that, for example, in not a sporting organization, but the organization called PLAI that I run. So when we reached out to some sponsors, the value that they want, and this is not second guessing, I asked a big bank, what do you want? They said, you know what, we just want access to networking opportunities. So a month ago, I hosted an event on startup exits in Gilmore Room. It's, ICICI Bank, India's largest bank. They were very clear, look, everyone knows us, so I don't need extra awareness, but I want to connect with people. So their desire was, you know what, I don't need my logos and stuff. That's all right. If you want to, please go ahead. I just want to be part of your event, to meet people, to have conversations. And you know what? If 3 people are happy to have a follow-up coffee, that's a win for me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a mega deal. It was a micro deal. They didn't want the billboards and the social media posts. That's a good to have. They just wanted access to people. So again, to club owners, yes, use digital to have micro, $5 a month, $50 a month. Absolutely. Crowdfunding works. Involve people for creative ways. That has massive emotional connect. But to the bigger brands, find a few. Don't just bet on one from a risk perspective. But I think, again, lean on your superpower of your stories, of the access to people that you have. It's the member base. The more you know them, the more segmented data facts that you know about them, the better your sell. Go beyond the hoardings and the billboards.
Do more surveys. Ask more questions.
Ask more questions. This is such an important point, Scott. In fact, I'll tell you, there was a sports conference in Singapore 2 months ago. Sanjog, who's the ICC CEO currently, he said this at the ICC level. Someone asked him, what's your big challenge? You've got the big coffers, cricket's growing. He said, my biggest challenge is I do not know what my audience wants. I just show them cricket without knowing who's watching. Is it Scott, Scott's daughter, Prantik? How much is he watching? He said, and he comes from a tech background. He said, in the tech world, my first job for the first year would be to know who these customers are at an individual level.
Yeah.
Why are they watching? What are they watching? When are they watching? What do they like, not like? He said, right now it's a great time. Cricket's growing. But my challenge is I don't have the data. I don't know what Scott wants. If that's ICC saying, you've got to be humble at your club level saying, you're not that big. But if you have 200 members, easy. Surveys, get focus groups, ask, listen, be informed, and then take a call, right? That data, that insight of the 200 members, and by the way, it's not just 200 members. Each member has a family.
Has an ecosystem.
So 200 could mean 1,000.
Yeah.
And that's massive. But it needs to start with you knowing, again, what business do I want to build? Who are my audience and customers? What ecosystems do they operate in? And genuinely, what do they want? Sounds simple. It's harder, easier said than done. But that's a process you got to follow.
Prantik, thank you for today. I really hope there's a couple of sports club leaders watching this or listening to this who have taken just one thing from the discussion that's going to add value to their club. Before we leave, 2 words. If I'm a sports club leader watching or listening to this today, what are the first 2 things that I need to reconsider? 2 words only.
Listen and reflect. Listen to your members and just reflect on what business do you want to build for the next 10 years.
Where can people find you?
LinkedIn's the easiest. Prantik Mazumdar. If anyone just sends me a DM, that's the easiest channel.
Prantik, Thank you so much.
Scott, I want to thank you and your team for sort of doing this, because I think for two reasons. I think the business you're building has massive potential opportunity, but not just from a commercial perspective, but to change the ecosystem and ethos of sporting clubs, to make them efficient, effective, successful. So kudos to you on that. Also for sort of doing this, because I think these conversations are important. Because whilst you're doing this for sporting clubs, I think it also has relevance to larger, small, medium businesses. These mindsets, business model changes, or principles of finding revenue sources and just creating successful businesses are critical for any country, any community. So thank you for doing this. You've been a successful player, and I'm sure you're going to take a lot of principles from your successful playing and coaching days to what you're doing. Because the beauty of, I'll end by saying this, that there's a lot of parallels of sort of sport and business. And again, the irony is that the people who run business and sports forget that similarity and parallels. And I'll end with what you just said. You need to play it hard, but you need to know your numbers. And you need to be able to sort of play it in a manner that, yes, you're playing to win, but you're also playing to learn. And I think it just urge, especially folks in the sporting fraternity, just pause and reflect on how you would play sport. Can you not take some of those lessons, those disciplines, those principles, apply it? Sometimes the answer is closer than we think it is. And play sport, but learn and apply the lessons that you sort of learn on field to your off field business.
I agree. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Good stuff. All right.